Well, thanks for being with us. I'm going to have Ellen share away. And hi, Ellen. Ellen Palmer is the program administrator of educational technology from Pomona Unified School District. One of our friends for, I think, the last 5 years, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
we've watched you grow, and we're so proud of you and so enthusiastic about your work. And I think that you're just an amazingly lovely person. So
Thank you.
I'm excited to hear what you think about what we've been talking about and hear what you want to talk about today, and share with us. Super excited to have you.
As I was listening about in terms of the conversation that was happening, I mean, there's so much that's going on, and like I was saying before, I really feel like being a part of the learning that you have provided over the last 5 years has really helped to guide our work. And I know that, our department has to stay future focused. We're always, ahead of the game. We're early adopters. And oftentimes it's challenging because you just want everybody else to get on the ship and let's go. And but during the pandemic, Lulani, I don't know if you know this. So during the pandemic, we had a director of ed tech on board through the first March to May. And then she stayed on with us until September, and she actually stepped down to go and be able to provide support for her kindergartner. Her daughter was in kindergarten last year, so she left myself and the team to keep the focus and keep going. And so, but a lot of what you were talking about, I wanted to kind of bring up some of the work that we've got to do collaboratively. And I think that it moved faster because of the pandemic, because it was so much easier to call a meeting. We could call meetings last minute and everybody could jump on Zoom, and you didn't have to wait and try to, make sure everybody could get on at a certain time. And but some of the work that we've been doing that's been very exciting for me, that really kind of, as you were talking about the selection and management of curriculum and the systems, our district did do a lot of purchasing during the pandemic. I was happy to say that we did not have to do a lot of investing for hardware. Our infrastructure had already been in place. Our district takes advantage of E-rate. And so we had a very robust network. We already had a teacher laptop initiative that had been in place several years. And so, we had already kind of ensured that teachers had tools. We were in our third year. We were halfway through our third year of implementation for our one-to-one program. So majority of our school sites were already one-to-one, and the students, the only shift that we had to make was originally we had planned to make TK through second grade a in-class model, and the grades 3 through 12 were a take-home model. And now we have a TK-12 take-home model. And so we do give our TK and K kids we let the teachers, kind of prep them and learn how to use the device before we start sending it home. But so the hardware was in place, but we got a lot of opportunities to look at tools that EdTech, our team always had wanted the district to be able to invest in and get the opportunity to actually put them in our LCAP budget. So now we have a sustainable funding source. So we were originally, when we started, and let me pull my list because I was looking at it. When we started with our tools, as a department, I think we were funding Securely, which is our student filter. We were funding our NetOp, which is classroom management software, and Camming. I think those were kind of like the key things that we had been funding. And then our secondary director, she was funding Gizmos, which is a online simulation for science, and STEM Scopes. We had done a thorough investigation of science digital curriculum, and we had gotten the opportunity to adopt STEM Scopes, so we had that in place. But outside of that, we really didn't have anything else other than this vendor has a free tool, let's try it. Let's see how long they leave it free, you know?
Mhm.
And so we were doing a lot of that. But during the pandemic, we invested in Remind. So we now have a common communication tool, also invested in Zoom. We got the opportunity to invest in Seesaw. Originally, we had invested TK8. We found that a lot of our middle school teachers were not leveraging it. So this year we invested in it for TK5, Edpuzzle, TK12, Padlet, TK12, Pear Deck, TK12. Edgenuity, we had it originally for the high schools because they used it for credit recovery. Last year during the pandemic, we expanded to sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And this year, we found that a lot of the teachers in those grade levels weren't leveraging it. So we just invested in it for our independent studies program this year. But these resources, although we had always wanted to have the funding, I think it goes back to Chris's question about leadership and where they're at. I think because leadership got to be in classrooms more, getting to see the teachers leveraging these tools, because a lot of the vendors that first few months made them free for all. And so we got the opportunity in our professional learning to expose teachers to the tools, and they began using them. I want to share a data point that just, kind of amazed me. So during the first part of the pandemic, that March to May, that first year, we had about, originally before the pandemic hit, we had about 105 out of, I would say, about 1,700 teachers leveraging Pear Deck. And this was a tool that we had showed a lot of our teachers how to leverage the free version of. During just that small, short time, we went from 105 active teachers to 519 active teachers between March to May. This is where it gets crazy. During that original first period, we had about 714 presentations leveraged with kids. When we looked at data at the start of last year, we had 10,914 presentations that had been leveraged. And this is a short window, August to October, right? The second leg. So teachers really began to leverage the tools. And in thinking about when you were talking about the data points, and Chris mentioned like the conferring that needs to happen. We've been following, I don't know if you've ever heard of Holly Clark. She's a NorCal teacher, and Holly's written a couple books, but we have been advocating that teachers leverage her strategy of visible thinking. And the idea is that with a tool like Pear Deck or many, many others that are out there, you create learning experiences that allow you to see that error in real time, but not just for a single kid that you called on, right, that raised their hand, but for all kids, because you're now leveraging a tool that allows you to peek in and see each student's work simultaneously. Or maybe it's going back to the positive proof. You're leveraging a tool like Pear Deck, you're able to see a student who's kind of drawn out their strategies, and you now have a student can now go and share their strategy that they use to solve that math problem. And it might have been different than I solved it, but now my knowledge is now expanded, and those students that had misconceptions, they can help to clear them up for each other. And so we've been leveraging that strategy now and helping teachers to really see that you can leverage technology. And equity sticks are great, but you only know if 2 or 3 kids know they understood it. But leveraging a technology that allows you to peek in and see where every single student is at, document the process, has been really amazing for us, and we'll continue to kind of all of our focus areas that we have had as we rolled out our one-to-one program 5 years ago. We're not trying to expand. We'll continue to have those 5 focus areas, but now it's going deeper. And now we're working to make sure that all teachers are equipped. The pandemic, another silver lining for us that just was absolutely amazing, is the amount of professional learning we were able to provide. So our district is, we believe in professional learning. We think that the teacher is the key to helping all students learn. And so during that first March to May window of the pandemic, we actually organized and facilitated week-long professional conferences. We had in-house conferences. They were all done through Zoom. It was teacher self-selected. So every week they got a new schedule and they got to go in and register themselves for the sessions that they wanted to take based on when they were going to have their kids coming and working with them on Zoom and when they would have some free time during the day to kind of plug into professional learning. That was during the first part where we were 100%, virtual. Once we moved into our hybrid model, we went with a 2-day model, one group for Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, everybody was at home learning. And then Thursday, Friday was the in class for the other group of students. And we got to offer teachers self-selected 3 hours. It was 3-hour blocks. They could go to one session that might have been for all 3 hours, or they could have gone to 3 different sessions, an hour each. And so we really got to equip many, many, many more teachers. I feel like we're so much further along. And I would say we not only got to equip our teachers, but our administrators as well as our parents, because we got opportunities to facilitate training for parents, which we rarely, some school sites will bring us in and have us do like a meet the principal or a coffee, and they'll bring us in and have us focus. But we provided ongoing professional learning for parents. So they understood, like we have Clever. And so single sign-on, you go here, this is how your kid accesses all their curriculum. We showed them what the Google Classroom learning experience is. We showed them how to submit assignments and how to look at things and how to kind of monitor their students. And so really working, I think EdTech now has a broader vision that our stakeholder group is no longer just teachers and students, but it also includes the community, as well as those parents and family members that are supporting their students in learning. So,
question for you on the parent thing, because we've been hearing this from all over the country, right? Like, wow, we realize now we have to leverage parents, and they came in, and some of them that were huffy puffy, like, why do I have to do this? And then other ones are like, this is great. What's my login, right? So what did you see? What happened?
I actually didn't get a chance to participate in any of the parent trainings. Our team members would be brought in. When I used to facilitate parent trainings, I think the one thing that we used to see is sometimes we even had to go back to, this is a mouse. This is how you move the mouse. Look at there's 2 buttons on top. The one is the left click, the one is the right click. But I don't think you necessarily have to go all the way back. I think, as the younger generation that has grown up with technology or having kids, it's a little bit easier. I do know that, many of our families are relying on their grandparents to support their students. I know I relied heavily on my parents. My mom became the teacher and my dad was the principal when my mom was there. When my mom started subbing again, because my mom is a retired teacher, when she started subbing again when she could, my dad became the mean sub. So, but I think for a lot of our families, some of them are, avid tech users, and this was no big deal, and they were able to support their student and kind of figure it out. I do know that I have even, gotten phone calls from parents. They're trying to help their kindergartner sign into their Chromebook for the first time, and okay, let's pull out our phones. Do you have an iPhone? Okay, perfect. Let's FaceTime. And I'm like, okay, click here, click here, click here. So, and in terms of So we focus not just on supporting the parents and knowing where their student was and how to look at and monitor their work instructionally, but also one of the things that has come out, and another silver lining, I think, because we didn't really have this support for our one-to-one program for families, is we established a tech helpline, and that tech helpline is going to continue. So a couple techs per day come and work centrally, and they man the tech helpline. So when parents and students call in for technical support, they can help. And then they become part of the central team that's repairing student device and teacher device that are in the workshop for repairs. So
Good plan.
yeah, that's been a great support. Of course, the school sites that fund their own tech, they had to be flexible a little bit and give up their tech one day. I think based on a number of techs, they have to give up their tech one day every 2 weeks. So they spend time centrally. But we're leveraging existing resources. So that's been good.
Okay, good. Well, I think Chris also had a question, if we can sort of go into our question mode for a second here. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry. Yeah, no, it sounds like fantastic work. I'm super excited, and boy, do I wish that I could be in your system, because it sounds like you're doing awesome stuff, and it sounds like a lot of fun. So I was thinking about, as you were sharing about the Pear Deck, which I love. So what I'm curious about, that's a pretty substantial adoption rate, right? And so what I'm always interested to know more about is, how did that happen? Because there's like this underground thing, and sometimes it just happens by magic, but it isn't really magic. What would you ascribe that adoption rate increase to?
No, I would say one, obviously being able to provide more professional learning to more teachers, because we were able to put the professional learning during the regular school day for that 12 months. It really allowed more teachers to take advantage. The other thing that we've done is we've also started, we call it our Inspired Educator series, and it's an after-school professional learning that teachers can sign up for each semester. And it's facilitated by EdTech teacher specialists, and but they get paid. The teachers, we now are leveraging our Title II funds to pay teachers to come to after-school professional learning. But I would really say, I think the pandemic and teachers genuinely caring about their students and really wanting to provide a learning experience that will help all students learn is why you saw a much greater adoption, right? Once the teachers were equipped, because of their love for their kids, they were inspired to, build the decks or even share decks. I know a lot of our literacy coaches built decks that teachers could leverage within their classroom. There was a lot of collaboration going on amongst teacher specialists from ed services and ed tech. I also want to give credit, because our teacher specialists in ed tech have been absolutely amazing. And I think Chris, you were talking about it when you were talking about the learning design. Our teacher specialists became very cognizant of our adult learners and the setting that they were put into that was so very new to most of us, right? And what they did and what they continue to do that's been absolutely fabulous is they are not just teaching teachers how to use the tool, but they're staying with our framework that we follow in terms of designing a lesson experience is Weston Kieschnick. I don't know if you've read his book, Bold School, but he has his Bold School framework where the teachers need to think about the learning outcome. Then they need to think about which high effect size, so John Hattie's work, high effect size strategy, that they're going to leverage, that they know that will help elevate the students' thinking, and then choose the tool. So it's not, how do I want to use Pear Deck today? But I need to make sure that my students are showing me X, Y, and Z, and I need to be able to see and pinpoint where the missteps are, where the misconceptions are. So I'm going to leverage technology, Pear Deck, but I'm not just going to leverage Pear Deck. I'm going to leverage it with reciprocal teaching. And so kind of reframing teachers thinking that we don't ask, how am I going to use Pear Deck today with the kids? But I'm using reciprocal teaching, and Pear Deck would be great in the as I'm having students read this article, I'm going to go ahead and put Pear Deck in when they are highlighting and identifying words that they need clarified, right? And so purposefully leveraging technology. And I got an opportunity to coach some of our principals. It was a volunteer basis. It was last spring. And I said, you know, if any principals are interested in doing some ed tech coaching, we can do some Zoom class walks, and we can look at how teachers are leveraging technology. And we can look at, and it was more to kind of guide our work that we were doing in ed tech and making sure that we were giving teachers learning experiences that would support them, that would equip them. So I want to hold on to that, though. I want to go back to our teacher specialists. Our teacher specialists in ed tech have become extremely cognizant of the learners and the setting in which they're learning. And they are also using the Bold School framework to plan their learning experiences and they're modeling for teachers. Because I think that's the big thing that a lot of teachers will say, well, I need to see what it looks like. And so when we bring teachers into our trainings, if we're modeling what it looks like, they can then go back and kind of duplicate it or mimic it until they get the hang of it themselves. And so that's one of the great things that they've been doing. So
yeah, and I think you can't stress that enough. I think there's been a lot of tech theory, augmentation theory for way too long. And I would speculate that one of the reasons you had such a dramatic increase is because people were sharing finished work. Yeah. And because it's all about it, I mean, humans learn by mimicry. Like that's what babies do when they learn to speak. They mimic the mouth movements. And mimicry is a human method of learning. That's actually the earliest method we have. So I'm fascinated with, even if you would have numbers of the lessons created, like, did you see an inflection point? Like after like 30 people were sharing, did it suddenly have an inflection point? Because that's really, from a software perspective, that's what all the companies always ask us. Just like Chris was asking, like, what was the inflection point? Like, it's like that Crossing the Chasm book. Like you get to critical mass, and what is the critical mass? Like it's after that that I always see it goes nuclear, right? Because somebody goes, oh, I really like that teacher down the hall. She's my friend. And she just shared this and I'm into that. So, you know, I'm going to mimic that.
No, I know one of the things that we did see, we had a group of 6th grade teachers that were in a particular similar area of the city. And so they would collaborate regularly, and they would usually, you know, once a month go meet after school and they kind of get together. But we saw through the use of Zoom that they were able to expand and this was a self-organized, self-facilitated PLC, but they expanded to other school sites that were not even in their cluster area. And so you started to see lesson design that was occurring within the small group of 6th grade teachers now being expanded to other 6th grade teachers. Of course, it takes the right team to come together for that to work, because I know that some principals said, well, I want to plug my 6th grade teacher into that group. And then the group would be like, that teacher really doesn't have the right mindset yet. They're going to slow us down. And so they'd kind of like, you know, push back a little bit. But yeah, you did see elements of that. I think you see that a lot now I think that grade level teams are planning much more than they ever did at school site levels, where before the admin would hope that the grade level would plan together. Now I think, you could probably talk to most of our principals to say, yeah, I only really have one grade level that doesn't plan together anymore, where before it was like, you might have one or two that were planning together. So,
yeah, there's a lot. We've heard that a lot too. There's a lot more communication. I think, Chris, you had your hand raised again. So go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, yeah. No, so what I'm fascinated by is your ed tech facilitators, or what I would call coaches. There's, as I listen to what they do, what comes to mind is any of the most effective practices in instructional coaching. And so adoption of practice is different than adoption of a tool. And what I am amazed by is, and excited by is that your ed tech folks are instructional coaches, and they're actually showing how do you build with these Lego blocks and create an experience. And that's awesome, because that's what it takes, right? Otherwise it doesn't happen. Otherwise you're just teaching a tool, and then who knows if it's going to be adopted, or
if it's going to be used effectively. Right.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Is it going to be effective, or is it just going to, Weston Kieschnick, he really stresses how long you use the tool. If it takes more time to put the plan together to use the tool than you actually use it with kids, then it's not worth it. Right. And so it's strategically leveraging these tools. And of course, you still have some teachers that are like, oh, I need a new tool. Give me a new tool, Ellen. Come on, I know you know them all. And I'm like, well, what are you teaching? What's the learning outcome? What strategy are you leveraging? And then, I want to go back to what I was sharing. So I got an opportunity to coach some of our principals, and I got to do a school walk with one of our high school principals. And I think that where our high school teachers are is, every single class we walked into, there was clear learning outcomes. There was a high effect strategy being leveraged, and the tool was strategically placed. I think where we are with our high school teachers now is teaching them about time and space. And LeiLani, you were speaking to this yesterday. I anticipate that we're going to be in our traditional structures and bell schedules for quite some time, right? We're a very traditional district. I don't see us, going to grade spans and competency-based education. We will eventually get there, but we're going to, if our structures continue being kind of this, 6 period a day, 55 minutes per day, our secondary teachers need to really look at the time and space that they do have with kids, and look at how they can flip some of the work that they were having kids do, right? We walk into a Zoom and a teacher's leveraging Pear Deck, and she's having kids clarify vocabulary for each other, but there's no interaction between peers, right? They're kind of isolated and working behind their cameras quietly, and the teacher's kind of waiting until they're done with that segment of the learning before they move on to the next segment. And so I look at that and I say, that teacher could have easily flipped that out for homework. And now maybe she's facilitating a structured academic discussion, leveraging one of the high effect size strategies, or leveraging an AVID strategy, because our secondary schools are all AVID schools. And so leveraging some of the structured discussions that AVID is advocating for, and allowing the kids to have that peer-to-peer as well as that teacher-to-peer interaction, because that's where the relationship is formed. And I know that, in thinking about relationships, the teacher, I think where we want to go with our secondaries is teaching them how to flip things out to homework, leveraging technology so they can still see the work that the kids were doing and when they were doing it and how they were doing it, who were they doing it with. But creating that time and space to support those connections, because I think the relationship building that teachers do is not something that tech can do.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I
Yeah.
think the thing that I'm hearing now on these conceptions of time and space is exactly what you said.
Yeah.
The average teacher doesn't lecture or lead the class the entire hour, most of the time. So if you start to distinguish between those real human teacher leader moments and the rest of the learning, that's when you start to see that you could shift time and space. And a lot of traditional schools, our hypothesis is they're going to Uberize within context. And that would mean the teacher is seeing each small step the students are taking that is in the independent learning part, even if they're in front of her. And she's watching them move. And it's auto cohorting the 6 front runners for her to go over to. Does that make sense? And then the ones that are running behind, if that auto cohort hasn't happened for the advanced ones yet, she can see who's way behind and she walks over to them. So in other words, the refinement of time and space is coming because it's already logistically overtaken the transportation industry, most of pharmacy and, supermarkets, totally different world. But I like your observation because you know what we're talking about. The human intersection is very important, but what part of it? Is the teacher just sitting at their desk while everybody does their own? No, that's not teaching. So that's really, I think, what I would say about that, just to clarify. But I love that you've thought about it.
Yes, it's been a big part of our work. We want to go deeper with it. I know, we're planning for next week. We'll launch our online learning program. So we have a credit recovery and acceleration program that we run usually late September through summer school. And it's our high school kids needing to either fill a gap. Maybe our district requires a tech class. Maybe they're coming in a senior year. They never took a tech class that will translate on their transcript. And so we might have the kids, or it might be a student who they identified in summer school. We had a student last year, 9th grader. The school site's calling me because this kid needs to be put in advanced math. He breezed through, math 1 during summer school in 11 days. We need to put him in. So what we ended up doing, because our district requires 3 years of math, and they wanted to make sure that he could take more advanced math. And so what we ended up doing is we gave him in our acceleration after school credit recovery and acceleration online learning program, we gave him math 2, and then they put him into pre-calculus. So that way he could take pre-calculus as a freshman and then would be able to take calculus. And I would imagine next year we're going to have to send him off to junior college and partner with the junior college for him to be able to continue his math learning because he's so brilliant. But we were talking about in launching the program, we were talking about how the interactions that kids need with teachers, and we're talking about setting an expectation that the teachers that are working with our kids after school, this is extra pay that they get, that they identify those kids that they're going to meet with, and it's going to be a short, quick meeting. Just say, hey, you're doing a great job. I just wanted to recognize that, versus the students that, aren't showing up and really reaching out and trying to figure out why, what's going on in your life. How can I help? Is there a resource that you need? A lot of our families, the pandemic exacerbated the poverty in which they were living in already. Going into the pandemic, we had 3,000 students that were homeless. I don't even know where the number is right now, but I know that it has to be greater. And so reaching out to those students and really building those relationships. So when a student is in need, they have somebody that they trust and that they can go to and ask for help and advocate for themselves. So we were talking about what sort of policies should we have in place? What sort of expectations should we have in terms of teachers? How frequently will they reach out? I love the app that the gal yesterday morning mentioned, or yesterday afternoon mentioned. I'm going to check it out, where you sent a 1-minute video to the kids to get them to engage with you. So,
yeah. And there's other ones that are coming out. They're like talking points that does auto translations in any language, which is huge. If you've got an influx of population that's speaking a language nobody thought was going to be here. So that's huge. So I think what I want to say is what I see happening with you and with all of Pomona is that you've not only left the monolithicness of traditional, you went this direction deep into tech, and now you're going deep into the refinement of the human intersection. So it's kind of like you took the scale and blew it up both directions. That is what we're really hoping is going to happen in digital transition. Like, what a horror show it would be if people just globbed on tech. Because you're looking at that refinement of the human intersection. You're worried about the homeless kids. You're worried about this. You're worried about that. It means that you're not only on the tech side, you're on the human side. You're balancing. And that's exactly the point that school districts should be, right? You should be balancing those two things in an ever refining dance, right? Between the two, like the perfect use of the human and the perfect use of the tool is really the nirvana, right? So it's really good to see that you're thinking with that. I'm thinking also that really from a leadership view, just hearing from your associate superintendent and others this morning, what an awesome thing, right? You're lucky to be where you're at.
Yes. This last year and a half, I know we've had major challenges and there's been late nights. I was recalling, a 20-hour day work week, 20 hours a day, barely getting any sleep. But it's been amazing. Something that I want to say, the collaboration has become greater within amongst all of the departments. Within ed services, our teacher specialists are collaborating more with our content area teacher specialists, the program administrators at the different divisions. Our work is touching each other and we're supporting each other. The pandemic obviously did show us some challenges, but we started to dive in and resolve some of them. The communication, I think, is going to continue to be our greatest challenge, because even if you have the tools like Remind and email and the website and in ensuring that all stakeholders see the message and get the opportunity to read it or listen to it and understand it is going to continue to be a challenge. Right now our district is definitely struggling for subs and teachers. They've gotten really creative though. Pomona is 15 square miles. It's a small area, city, but we're surrounded by universities on 3 sides. And so we've gone and reached out and we're pulling in interns from credential programs and getting them to jump on board, get paid for your internship this year, get paid for your teaching, your student teaching. We've also looked at who of our classified staff have degrees and might have, like our paraeducators and our special ed instructional aides who have degrees, but they haven't transitioned for some reason or another, or haven't gotten their teaching credential yet, and encouraging them to kind of step up and be a teacher this year. So there's a lot of creativity. I'm sure those staff members coming on will definitely need a lot of support, but our teams, we have equity and professional learning and ed tech. We are the two training teams within the district. And so I know the collaboration that we get to do with and amongst each other will be able to kind of help them and kind of tweak and peak and continue to tweak and peak. That was one of the things as our new department lead came in. That was one of the things that I was sharing with her. I said, I don't think we need to go, we don't need any new things. We just need to go deeper and deeper and deeper. Go deeper with student-centered learning. Go deeper and help teachers understand how to design those learning experiences where technology is being leveraged actively. Continue to leverage the visible thinking routines with the tech tool so that teachers can actually assess for learning and use that assessment to, provide additional direct instruction maybe, or intervention, or maybe it's acceleration. I mean, we have a lot of bright kids that if teachers aren't careful, they're kind of sitting around being bored, waiting for their classmates to catch up. And so, looking at that. And then also, I think the big shift, and this is like I will feel like our team has arrived if we can begin to help teachers learn, understand, and leverage problem and project-based learning and design-based thinking. I think those things, like bringing in the rigor and the relevance, are really going to engage our kids. And so that's like our big vision. That's our goal, is getting to a point where teachers are, equipped, but also not just equipped, because sometimes the teacher can have all these skills, but the will and feel empowered and inspired to create those learning experiences that are just dynamic and really help students get to a point where they're designing their own learning experiences, they're setting goals and becoming the people that they want to become. So yeah,
that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you're still going forward with like bigger dreams, bigger goals, wanting more, that's really what we want to hear at Learning Council. We want the transformation to continue. And even though we normally call it transition because it's tamer, it doesn't scare people as much. Yeah, but I'm really excited about all the work that you're doing and the way your district is leading the human side and the tech side. This is just, I hope this message gets out to thousands of districts, because this is what we want people to hear. So with that said, are there any last words, or we're going to jump forward and do the next thing?
No, we can jump.
Okay, good. Well, Ellen, you are just a precious gem. Thank you so much.
And again, I want to thank you, because I really feel like the work that you guys do and the opportunities to come and learn from other districts and learn with you and alongside you and all the resources that you're creating has really helped myself stay future focused. And I know that, I have learned to be patient and we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Yes.
Yeah, you guys have made brilliant progress and accelerated with the pandemic. We will come back to you about the Uberization idea.
Okay.
So that you fully understand it. That work is continuing forward. A lot of people weighing in on it. I had an hour-long call yesterday with one of the Oregon service districts giving us input. So we're still collecting.
And I still want to have you come and speak to our district leaders.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah,
yes.
We'd love to fly down there if they allow me in there, with a hazmat suit on, I'll come.
For sure.
But anyway, yeah. Well, good. Well, thanks, Ellen.